On April 10, 2024, Dale Morrison set out before dawn for what he thought would be a routine deer hunting trip. The 52-year-old veteran hunter knew these woods well, 40 miles outside the city, dense enough for privacy but not remote enough to be dangerous. He'd been tracking a buck for weeks. At 6:34 a.m., something caught his attention. The earth looked disturbed, unnatural. Branches were piled in a way that didn't match the surrounding forest. Morrison had seen enough in his years to know when nature had been interrupted by human hands. He approached cautiously. The smell hit him first, unmistakable, stomach-turning. Then he saw it, a hand partially exposed, the skin discolored and decomposed. Morrison stumbled backward, pulled out his phone with shaking hands, and dialed 911. By 7:18 a.m., the woods were swarming with police. By noon, dental records had provided a name. Ryan Hayes, 29 years old, reported missing 3 weeks earlier on March 20th. He'd been lying in that shallow grave the entire time police had been searching for him. The medical examiner's preliminary findings were grim. Blunt force trauma combined with strangulation. Defensive wounds on his hands indicated he'd fought desperately for his life. This wasn't an accident or random violence. This was murder, calculated, brutal, and personal. What investigators didn't know yet was that this discovery would unravel a conspiracy born from greed, expose a love that society deemed impossible, and reveal how 2 deaths could have been prevented by simple human decency. 2 people, 2 losses. Ryan Hayes grew up knowing rejection intimately. Born to parents who either couldn't or wouldn't raise him, he entered the foster care system as an infant. He bounced between 7 different homes before he turned 18, never staying anywhere long enough to feel like he belonged. Some foster parents were kind but overwhelmed. Others saw him as a paycheck. None saw him as family. When he aged out of the system at 18, he had no safety net, no childhood home to return to for holidays, no parent to call when life got hard. But Ryan had one gift: resilience. He put himself through community college while working 3 jobs. He discovered fitness training and found he had a talent for it, not just the technical knowledge, but the ability to truly see people, to understand their struggles, to motivate without judgment. At 25, he married Elena Rodriguez, his high school sweetheart. She'd been the one constant in his chaotic youth, the girl who saw past his foster kid status, who loved him fiercely and completely. Their wedding was small but joyful. Ryan finally had what he'd always wanted: family. 6 months later, Elena complained of back pain and weight loss. The diagnosis came swift and merciless: stage 4 pancreatic cancer, already metastasized. She was 27 years old. Ryan became her full-time caregiver while still working to pay medical bills. He held her hand through chemotherapy sessions that ravaged her body without slowing the disease. He learned to hide his terror behind optimism, to be strong when she needed strength. Elena died on October 15, 2021, in a hospice bed with Ryan beside her. Her last words to him were, "Promise me you won't spend your life alone. Promise me you'll let yourself be happy again." Ryan promised, though he couldn't imagine how. For the next year, he barely survived. He worked obsessively, training clients back-to-back, arriving at the gym at 5 a.m. and leaving at 10 p.m. Movement kept the grief at bay. Stillness let it drown him. Margaret Whitmore knew a different kind of loss. She'd had everything Ryan had never known: a stable childhood, a loving marriage, financial security, children. And she'd watched it all slowly crumble. Robert Whitmore had been her college sweetheart. They married in 1969, built a successful real estate development business together, and raised 2 sons. For 51 years, they were partners in every sense. Margaret had never spent a night alone until Robert's sudden heart attack in March 2020. The grief was crushing, but what hurt almost as much was her son's absence. Gregory and Nathan had families, careers, busy lives. Margaret understood that. What she didn't understand was how months could pass without a visit, how phone calls became perfunctory, how holidays became obligatory. Gregory's wife Diana had always been cold toward Margaret, though Margaret could never pinpoint why. Nathan's wife Jennifer was polite but distant. The grandchildren were growing up barely knowing her. In 2022, Gregory asked Margaret to invest $300,000 in a business expansion. When she declined, wanting her son to want her company, not just her money, he didn't speak to her for 3 months. The message was clear. Her value to them was financial. Margaret told her friend Carol, "When Robert died, I thought my sons would check on me. Instead, they disappeared. I'm too alone and they're too busy." That quote would later be read in court, a haunting prediction of tragedy. The stroke that changed everything. On August 12, 2022, Margaret woke up and couldn't move her left arm properly. Her speech was slurred. Terrified, she managed to call 911. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed a minor ischemic stroke. She was lucky, no permanent damage, but it was a warning. Her doctor was firm. "Mrs. Whitmore, you need physical therapy. You need exercise. You need to take your health seriously, or the next one could be catastrophic." Neither Gregory nor Nathan visited her in the hospital. Both sent flowers. Gregory's card read, "Glad you're okay, Mom. Rest up." It was signed by his assistant. Margaret joined Apex Fitness in September, never having set foot in a gym before. The senior fitness area felt awkward and intimidating. Her trainer, Denise, was patient and professional, but Margaret felt invisible among the younger, fitter members. Then one Wednesday morning in October, she saw him. The first glance. Ryan was across the gym, training a client through a complex weightlifting routine. Margaret stopped mid-exercise, water bottle frozen halfway to her lips. He was beautiful, there was no other word for it. Tall, athletic, with an easy smile and graceful movement. But it wasn't just his appearance. It was the way he paid attention to his client, demonstrating form with patience, offering encouragement without condescension. Margaret caught herself staring and felt suddenly foolish. She was 74 years old. He was probably in his 20s. What was she thinking? But she kept noticing him. Every session, her eyes would find him across the gym. She told herself it was harmless appreciation, nothing more. The meeting. December 7, 2022. Margaret's water bottle slipped from her hands and rolled toward the main fitness area. Before she could retrieve it, Ryan picked it up and walked it over to her. "Here you go," he said, handing it to her with a smile. Then he added, "You're doing great, by the way. I've seen you with Denise. Your consistency is impressive." Margaret felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Thank you. I had a small stroke in August. Doctor's orders." "Well, you're taking it seriously. That's half the battle." He extended his hand. "I'm Ryan." "Margaret." The handshake lasted maybe 2 seconds, but Margaret thought about it all the way home. Over the following weeks, a pattern developed. Ryan would say hello when he saw her, ask how she was doing, offer small observations about her progress. Nothing deep, nothing inappropriate, but consistent and kind. Margaret learned fragments of his life. He was 28, had been a trainer for 4 years, grew up in the area. He was private, professional, but there was a sadness in his eyes that Margaret recognized, the look of someone who'd known real loss. The decision. By January 2023, Margaret's physical therapy was complete. Medically, she had no reason to continue coming to the gym, but the thought of stopping, of losing even these small interactions with Ryan, felt unbearable. She surprised herself by approaching him one afternoon. "Do you take on new clients for personal training?" Ryan looked genuinely surprised. "I mostly train athletes and younger clients, high-intensity work. I'm not sure I'd be the best fit for." "I'd like to work with you," Margaret interrupted gently. If you're willing. There was something in her voice, a vulnerability, a hopefulness, that made Ryan pause. He'd built walls around himself since Alina's death, keeping everyone at arm's length. But something about this dignified older woman asking for his help touched him. "Let's try a session," he said finally. "See if it works." They scheduled for Monday, January 23rd. Building something real. That first session, Ryan designed a program specifically for Margaret's age and recovery. Light resistance training, core stability work, flexibility exercises. He was patient and attentive, adjusting weights, correcting form with gentle guidance. At the end of the hour, he asked, "How do you feel?" "Wonderful," Margaret said honestly. It was the first time in months she'd felt genuinely good. They settled into a routine. Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:00 a.m. Between sets during rest periods, they began to talk. Margaret told him about Robert, how they'd met at a college debate tournament, how he'd proposed on a beach at sunset, how they'd built their business from nothing, how he died suddenly, leaving her adrift. Ryan listened in a way few people did anymore, truly present, asking thoughtful questions, remembering details from previous conversations. One Friday in February, Margaret gathered courage and asked about his life. Ryan hesitated. He'd become expert at deflecting personal questions. "Not much to tell, I work, that's about it. No family. Foster care, never knew my parents, no siblings." Margaret's heart broke. "And now, do you have anyone?" The question hung in the air. Ryan was silent for so long that Margaret thought she'd overstepped. Then quietly, "I had a wife. She died 2 years ago, cancer." "Oh, Ryan, I'm so sorry." "Alina, we met in high school, married young. She was diagnosed 6 months after our wedding. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She was 27 when she died." Margaret reached out and touched his arm. "That's unbearable." "Some days still are." Something shifted between them in that moment. They weren't trainer and client anymore. They were two people who understood that grief isn't something you get over, it's something you learn to carry. The deepening. February became March. March became April. They saw each other 3 times a week, and those 90-minute sessions became the highlight of both their weeks. Margaret told Ryan about her sons. "Gregory used to be so sweet as a boy. He'd bring me drawings from school, wanted to help with everything. Nathan was quieter but so thoughtful. I don't know when it changed, when they started seeing me as a source of money rather than their mother. They asked you to invest in Gregory's business. $300,000. And when I said no, he stopped calling. Not because I didn't have the money, I do, but because I wanted him to want to talk to me for reasons other than my bank account." Ryan understood that kind of pain, the feeling of being valued for utility rather than love. He shared his own story too, about Alina, about how cancer had stolen their future one day at a time, how he'd held her hand as she died, promising to live for both of them, how the grief had almost killed him. "Do you still think about her?" Margaret asked. "Every day, but it's different now. The sharp edges have dulled a little. She made me promise in the hospital not to spend my life alone. I haven't kept that promise yet." "She sounds like she was wonderful." "She was. You would have liked her. She had this way of seeing the best in people." "She saw the best in you," Margaret said softly. "She was right." The realization. May 2023. 6 months since they'd met, 4 months of training together. Margaret woke up one morning and admitted to herself what she'd been denying for weeks. She had feelings for Ryan, real feelings, not admiration or appreciation or gratitude. Love. The thought terrified her. She was 75 years old. He was 29, 46 years between them. People would think she was delusional, predatory, pathetic. Worse, Ryan might be horrified if he knew. She texted him that she wasn't feeling well, that she needed to take a break from training. Ryan responded immediately. Did I do something wrong? No, you didn't do anything wrong. I just need space. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. Margaret didn't come back. 1 week passed, 2 weeks, 3. Ryan tried to respect her space, but confusion ate at him. He replayed their last session in his mind, searching for what he might have done to push her away. Then, in the 3rd week of her absence, sitting alone in his apartment one night, Ryan had his own realization. He was in love with Margaret Whitmore. Somewhere between discussing grief and celebrating small victories, somewhere between her laugh and her kindness and the way she really saw him, he'd fallen completely. The age difference didn't matter to him. The opinions of others didn't matter. What mattered was that Margaret made him feel alive again, made him want to be better, made him remember what happiness felt like. But he had no idea if she felt the same way, and the thought that his feelings might have scared her off was unbearable. The doorstep. June 17, 2023. Ryan sat in his car outside Margaret's house for 20 minutes, gathering courage. He'd looked up her address in the gym database, a violation of privacy he'd normally never commit, but he needed to know she was okay, needed to see her one more time, even if it was to say goodbye. Finally, he walked to her door and rang the bell. Margaret answered, surprise and guardedness crossing her face. Ryan, what are you doing here? I needed to make sure you were okay. I'm fine. Then why did you stop coming? Margaret looked at him standing in her doorway, this beautiful young man who'd somehow become essential to her happiness, and knew she couldn't lie. Because I was starting to feel things I shouldn't feel. What kind of things? Ryan, don't make me say it, please. I need to hear it. Margaret took a shaky breath. I developed feelings for you, feelings that are inappropriate given our age difference. I'm 75 years old. You're 29. It's ridiculous. Ryan's heart soared and broke simultaneously. I've been feeling the same way, for months. Margaret stared at him. You can't mean that. I do. You're kind and funny and brilliant. You see me, not just the trainer, not just the guy from foster care, not just Alina's widower, me. When you stopped coming, something was missing. Ryan, this can't work. The age difference, people would think. I don't care what people think. Do you care about me? Tears filled Margaret's eyes. Yes, more than I should. Then why can't we try? Why can't we just be happy? Margaret wanted to list 100 reasons, but standing there, looking at Ryan's hopeful face, she couldn't remember a single one. Okay, she whispered, we'll try. Building a life together. They kept their relationship quiet at first, testing the waters. Dinners at Margaret's house, where Ryan would cook elaborate meals and Margaret would pretend to supervise. Movies in her home theater, where they'd argue good-naturedly about film choices. Ryan preferring action, Margaret preferring classic dramas. Long walks in her garden at sunset, talking about everything and nothing. Over the summer of 2023, they built something neither had expected to find again, a real partnership. Ryan introduced Margaret to his music, hip-hop and R&B she'd never heard before. She showed him classic films, Casablanca, Citizen Kane, Some Like It Hot. He taught her about nutrition and wellness. She taught him about art history and literature. They cooked together, Ryan doing the actual work while Margaret provided running commentary and occasional taste tests. They developed inside jokes, comfortable silences, rituals. Ryan never stayed overnight. They both felt that boundary was important, for propriety if nothing else. But he'd arrive early on Saturday mornings with coffee and fresh fruit, and they'd spend the day together, often not leaving her property. On an August evening, they fell asleep on her couch watching The African Queen. Ryan woke at 2 a.m. to find Margaret sleeping peacefully, her head on his shoulder, looking utterly content. He realized in that moment that he loved her completely, not despite their age difference but independent of it. She was simply Margaret, Brilliant, funny, kind, wounded in ways that matched his own wounds. The friend's warning. In September, Margaret's friend Carol came for dinner and met Ryan for the first time. Afterward, Carol pulled Margaret aside in the kitchen. "You're really in love with him." "Yes," Margaret admitted, no longer trying to hide it. "I know it's." "Don't apologize. I can see it in both your faces. He loves you too, Margaret, that's real." Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. "You don't think I'm foolish?" "I think you're brave, but Margaret," Carol hesitated, "if your sons find out, they're going to lose their minds. Gregory and Diana, they won't understand." "I know. Be careful, please." The will. October 2023. Margaret sat in her study, looking at her will from 2019. It was straightforward. Her $5.8 million estate split equally between Gregory and Nathan, $2.9 million each. But they didn't deserve it. They'd abandoned her when she needed them most. Their visits were perfunctory, their calls brief and obligation-driven. They saw her as a bank, not a mother. Ryan, meanwhile, had been with her every day for almost a year, had never asked for a single thing. She tried to give him gifts, offered to buy him a new car when his broke down, wanted to pay for a personal training certification program he'd mentioned. He'd refused everything. "I don't need your money, Margaret, I just need you." Margaret consulted her attorney, Howard Klein, about changing her will. Klein was immediately cautious. "Margaret, given the nature of your relationship with Mr. Hayes and the significant changes you're proposing, I need to protect both you and the validity of this will. I'm going to require cognitive evaluations." "I understand." 2 independent doctors examined her over the following weeks. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, interviews about her decision-making capacity. Both reached the same conclusion. Margaret Whitmore was of completely sound mind, sharp, articulate, and fully capable of making informed decisions about her estate. When Margaret told Ryan about the evaluations, his reaction surprised her. "Margaret, no, your sons are your children. They've abandoned me. They're still your family. I don't want your money, I never have." They talked for hours. Finally, Margaret proposed a compromise. "What if most of it goes to charity? Cancer research in Alina's name. Your sons can't say it's about money then. The whole estate would be going to something meaningful, not to you." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "That's beautiful. Alina would have loved that." "Your wife sounds like she was an extraordinary person." "She was, and so are you." The new will. In February 2024, Margaret met with Klein again to finalize the new will. The distribution would be $500,000 to Gregory, $500,000 to Nathan, $500,000 to Ryan, $4.3 million to establish the Alina Hayes Memorial Fund for pancreatic cancer research. Additionally, Margaret insisted on a specific clause. If any person named in this will is convicted of any crime related to harm or death of Ryan Hayes, all bequests to that person are void and shall be added to the Alina Hayes Memorial Fund. Klein looked up sharply. "Margaret, that's an unusual clause. Are you concerned about?" "I'm concerned about protecting Ryan," Margaret said simply. "My son's reactions when they learn about our relationship are unpredictable. I want legal protection in place." This is a strong deterrent clause. It essentially says that anyone who harms Ryan loses everything. Good, that's exactly what I want. On March 5, 2024, Margaret signed the will. It was done, legal, binding, and protected by cognitive evaluations. She planned to tell Gregory and Nathan in person, wanted to have a conversation, explain her reasoning, give them a chance to understand. She scheduled a family meeting for March 10th. But before that conversation could happen, there was the gala. The gala. The downtown Children's Hospital Charity Gala at Riverside Hall was a fixture of the city's social calendar. Margaret had attended for 20 years, writing generous checks and making small talk with the city's elite. This year, for the first time, she decided to bring a date. "Are you sure about this?" Ryan asked as they prepared, going public. "I'm 76 years old," Margaret said, adjusting his bow tie. "I don't have time to care what people think. I want one evening where we can be ourselves, where I can dance with the man I love without hiding." Ryan was nervous, but Margaret's confidence was infectious. They arrived at Riverside Hall together, Margaret in a champagne silk gown, Ryan in a classic tuxedo. The reaction was immediate. Heads turned. Whispers started. A 76-year-old woman with a strikingly handsome 29-year-old man. The age difference was obvious, impossible to miss. Some people were polite, offering tight smiles. Some were visibly uncomfortable, finding excuses to move away. One woman Margaret had known for years actually walked away mid-conversation when Margaret introduced Ryan as "my partner." But Margaret held her head high. She introduced Ryan proudly, dared anyone to comment. When the orchestra began playing, Ryan led her to the dance floor. They swayed together, Margaret's hand in his arm around her waist. "I love you," Ryan whispered, looking down at her. They'd been dancing around the words for months, but this was the first time either had said it explicitly. "I love you too," Margaret said, her voice thick with emotion. Ryan leaned down and kissed her, gentle, tender, full of genuine affection. Around them the ballroom seemed to pause. Some guests smiled, most looked scandalized, a few openly stared. High in the corner, a security camera captured it all. 10 seconds of two people in love, unaware that this moment of happiness would become evidence in a murder conspiracy. 10 seconds that would end two lives. The video. March 9, 11:23 a.m. Lawrence Price, owner of Riverside Hall, was reviewing security footage from the previous night's gala. It was standard procedure, checking for incidents, lost items, potential liability issues. He paused when he saw Margaret and Ryan dancing, zoomed in on the kiss. Lawrence knew Margaret. She'd held events at his venue for years, was a generous patron. He recognized her immediately. But the young man with her, Lawrence didn't know him, and he was very young, significantly younger than would be typical for a woman Margaret's age. Lawrence knew Margaret's sons through business connections. Gregory had used Riverside Hall for corporate events multiple times. They had a cordial professional relationship. Lawrence told himself he was being helpful, looking out for an older client who might be in over her head. In reality, he was stirring drama, perhaps enjoying the gossip potential. He extracted the 10-second clip and sent it to Gregory's email with a brief message. "Saw your mother at our gala last night. Thought you should see this." The brothers Ray. March 9, 11:47 a.m. Gregory Whitmore was in his downtown office, reviewing quarterly reports when the email notification appeared. He clicked the video, expecting maybe security footage of his mother's car, or perhaps something she'd left behind. Instead, he watched his 76-year-old mother dancing intimately with a young black man, watched them kiss. Gregory's face went from confusion to shock to pure rage. His hands shook as he grabbed his phone and called Nathan. "You need to see something. Check your email now." Nathan was at home. He opened the forwarded video on his laptop, his wife Jennifer looking over his shoulder. "Oh my God," Jennifer breathed. "Is that your mother?" "Who is that?" Nathan asked, his voice tight. "I don't know," Gregory said, "but we're finding out. I'm calling her now." The confrontation. Margaret's phone rang at 12:15 p.m. She saw Gregory's name and felt her stomach tighten. They rarely spoke these days, and never midday on a weekend. "Mom, we need to talk today." Margaret's heart sank. Someone had seen her and Ryan at the gala. Of course they had. About what? You know what, we're coming over at 6. Gregory, I'd rather. He hung up. That evening, Gregory and Nathan arrived at Margaret's door, their faces hard. Gregory didn't wait for pleasantries. Who is he? He held up his phone, showed her the video of her and Ryan dancing. Margaret took a breath. This wasn't how she'd wanted to tell them, but there was no avoiding it now. His name is Ryan Hayes. He's someone I've been seeing. Seeing? Gregory's voice dripped with contempt. Mom, he's a child. He's 29 years old. You're 76, Nathan said, his voice a mix of shock and disgust. I'm aware. How long has this been going on? Gregory demanded. Almost a year. A year and you didn't tell us. Margaret felt her own anger rising. When would I have told you, Gregory? You haven't visited in 8 months. Nathan came for Christmas and left after 45 minutes. That's not fair, Nathan protested. Isn't it? When's the last time either of you came just to spend time with me? Not to ask for money, not out of obligation, but because you wanted to see your mother. Gregory leaned forward, his voice cold. This guy, Ryan, what does he want? He wants to make me happy. He wants your money. He's never asked for a single thing. I've offered, he's refused. That's how these scams work, Mom. Be reasonable. Get out, Margaret said quietly. What? Get out of my house. We're trying to protect you. No, Margaret stood up, her voice rising. You're trying to control me. You ignored me for years, but the moment I find happiness with someone, suddenly you care. Get out. Gregory's face reddened. If you don't end this, we'll take action. What action? Margaret challenged. We'll have you declared incompetent. We'll prove he's manipulating you. I've already been evaluated. 2 independent doctors certified my competency in writing. You have no case. Nathan looked shocked. Why would you need evaluations unless, he trailed off, understanding dawning, unless you changed your will? Margaret lifted her chin. Yes, I changed my will. I signed the new version on March 5th. Mom, don't tell us. Most of the estate now goes to establish a cancer research fund in memory of Ryan's late wife, Alina. She died at 27 from pancreatic cancer. You each still receive $500,000, down from $2.9 million. The silence was deafening. His late wife, Gregory finally said, his voice acid. How convenient, a sob story. He didn't tell me about Alina for weeks after we met. He doesn't talk about her easily. He's not manipulating anyone. You're giving away millions to some charity for his dead wife. I'm giving it to cancer research, something meaningful, something that might save lives. What have either of you done lately that comes close to that? Gregory and Nathan exchanged a look. Without another word, they walked out. But as they reached Gregory's car, Gregory turned to his brother, his voice low and dangerous. We need to stop this, whatever it takes. The conspiracy. March 10th, 9 p.m., Gregory's house. Gregory, his wife Diana, Nathan, and Nathan's wife Jennifer sat around the dining room table. The atmosphere was poisonous. How much is she leaving him? Diana demanded. Her face was flushed with anger, wine glass gripped tight. 500,000, Gregory said. Plus most of the rest, over 4 million goes to some cancer fund in his wife's name. That money is ours, Diana hissed. We've been waiting for years. We have plans. The vacation house in Aspen, the boat, college funds for the kids. That inheritance is supposed to be ours. She's being manipulated, Jennifer added, though her voice was quieter, less certain. An old woman, lonely, vulnerable. This is textbook elder abuse. She's been evaluated, Nathan said. 2 doctors, she's competent. Those evaluations can be challenged, Diana insisted. We get our own doctors. We prove he's influenced her judgment. Gregory shook his head. That'll take years, litigation, appeals, and there's no guarantee we'd win. She signed the will March 5th. It's recent, detailed, protected. Then what do we do? Diana asked. Just accept that some 30-year-old conman is stealing our inheritance. Silence fell. Then Diana spoke again, her voice careful, measured. What if Ryan weren't in the picture? Everyone looked at her. What are you suggesting? Nathan asked slowly. I'm just saying, if Ryan disappeared, Mom would be alone again. She'd be devastated, sure, but she'd need us. She'd have no one else. She might change the will back. You're talking about, Jennifer stopped, unable to finish the sentence. I'm talking about protecting what's rightfully ours, Diana said. That money should go to our children, to our future, not to some stranger's charity. Gregory's mind was already working. What if we try something else first? What if we offer him money, pay him to leave? Nathan looked doubtful. You think he'd take it? Everyone has a price, Gregory said with confidence. We offer him enough, he'll disappear. Mom will be heartbroken, but she'll get over it. She's old. How many years does she have left anyway? The callousness of the statement hung in the air, but no one objected. How much? Nathan asked. 100,000 to start. If he refuses, we go higher. And if he still refuses? Gregory met his brother's eyes. Then we consider other options. The bribe. March 12th, 3:47 p.m. Ryan finished his last training session of the day, exhausted but satisfied. He was heading to his car when he noticed two men standing by a black Mercedes in the parking lot. They were watching him. As Ryan approached his car, the men moved to intercept him. Ryan Hayes, the taller one, asked. Ryan stopped, immediately wary. Who are you? Gregory Whitmore, Margaret's son. He gestured to the man beside him. This is my brother Nathan. Ryan's guard went up instantly. These were the sons Margaret had told him about, the ones who'd abandoned her, who only cared about money. What do you want? 5 minutes of your time. Ryan glanced around. The parking lot was public, other people around. Talk. Gregory didn't waste time on pleasantries. We know about you and our mother. We've seen the video from the gala. Okay, and we want you to end it. Ryan almost laughed. That's not happening. Gregory pulled an envelope from his jacket. Thick, heavy, he held it out. $100,000, cash. Walk away from our mother, never contact her again. Simple. Ryan stared at the envelope like it was a snake. You're bribing me. Call it what you want. It's a generous offer for a few months of your time. The condescension in Gregory's voice made Ryan's blood boil. I'm not interested. Fine, 200,000. No. Name your price then, Gregory said, his voice hardening. Everyone has one. Ryan looked at these two men. Expensive suits, expensive watches, expensive cars. Men who'd been born with everything Ryan had never had, and they'd wasted it. They had a mother who loved them, and they treated her like an ATM. There isn't a price, Ryan said quietly. I love Margaret. Gregory's face twisted. You love a 76-year-old woman. You hear how insane that sounds. I hear it, I don't care. This is a mistake, Nathan said quietly. Take the money. No, your mother is incredible. She's kind and brilliant, and she deserves better than you. Instead of being happy she found someone who cares about her, you're here trying to buy me off. That tells me everything I need to know about you. Ryan got in his car and drove away, leaving two furious men in the parking lot. The call. March 12th, 8:14 p.m. Gregory sat in his home office, door closed, and made a phone call. The number belonged to Julian Cross, someone Gregory knew through business circles. They'd met at a security conference 3 years ago. Julian had been military, special forces, Gregory remembered. Discharged under circumstances Julian never fully explained. Now Julian worked as a security consultant, A vague title that could mean anything. But Gregory had heard rumors. Julian had a reputation. He handled problems. Permanently. Julian, it's Gregory Whitmore. I remember. What can I do for you? I need to meet. Tonight I have a problem that needs handling. A pause. What kind of problem? Not over the phone. Where? They met at 9 p.m. in a dark bar on the edge of town. Gregory chose a booth in the back. He explained carefully, never using explicit words. Didn't.